In the summer of 2005, a man named Slevin was pulled over for drunk driving in New Mexico. To most, that kind of arrest would mean a short stint in jail, maybe a fine, and then a court appearance to determine sentencing. But for Slevin, that night would mark the beginning of one of the most harrowing and unbelievable ordeals in the modern American justice system. What should have been a routine case spiraled into nearly 2 years of torment. A story so shocking that, when the details emerged, it made headlines worldwide. Slevin would not just be jailed, he would be forgotten, left to rot in solitary confinement for 22 months without trial, without conviction, and without so much as a hearing. This is the story of a man swallowed alive by the cracks of a broken system, and how his fight for justice would lead to one of the largest settlements of its kind in U.S. history. By 2005, Slevin's life was already troubled. He was 55 years old and had been struggling with depression and other mental health challenges. His life was unraveling, and he had made some poor choices. That summer, he borrowed a friend's car in hopes of leaving New Mexico behind and starting fresh. But when he was pulled over in August for driving under the influence, officers discovered that the car he was driving was reported stolen. Slevin was arrested and booked in Dona Ana County Jail. It should have been straightforward: a charge, a court date, perhaps some jail time or rehab. But what happened instead was something out of a nightmare. Instead of being processed like the other inmates, Slevin was suddenly pulled from the general population and placed in a solitary confinement cell. No explanation was given. No hearing was scheduled. No attorney came to see him. He was simply left alone in a 6 by 10 foot concrete box, and the door was locked. At first, Slevin believed it was temporary, perhaps for observation, or until his hearing date was set. Days passed, then weeks, then months, and still, nothing changed. He was trapped in isolation with no end in sight. Solitary confinement is often described as one of the harshest punishments in prison. Inmates are cut off from all meaningful human contact, locked away for 23 hours a day in a bare cell with only a bed, a toilet, and their thoughts. Experts say that prolonged isolation can cause hallucinations, paranoia, anxiety, and permanent psychological damage. Slevin had no clock, no television, no books, no interaction with other prisoners. Time became meaningless. At first, he begged for answers. He asked guards when his trial would be, when he would be allowed to leave isolation, and when someone would help him. But his pleas were ignored. Guards treated him with hostility, mocking him, brushing off his requests, or simply pretending not to hear him at all. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. His mental state began to collapse under the crushing weight of loneliness. Slevin physical health deteriorated just as badly as his mind. Locked away with no access to proper hygiene, he developed painful sores from lying on his filthy mattress. His hair grew long, matted, and unkempt. His beard grew wild. His teeth began to rot, and when a severe infection set in, he was denied dental treatment. In excruciating pain, Slevin was left with no choice but to pull out his own tooth, using nothing but his hands. He was literally wasting away in front of the guards, who saw his condition worsen but offered no help. The man who had entered jail in 2005, clean-shaven, with a full face and healthy build, was unrecognizable by the time he was released almost 700 days later. Perhaps the most horrifying detail of Slevin ordeal is that he had never been convicted of a crime. He was being held without trial, without due process, and without legal representation. The justice system had simply lost him, and nobody seemed to care. In 2007, after nearly 2 years in solitary confinement, Slevin was finally deemed mentally unfit to stand trial. The jail released him, not because they recognized the injustice of what had happened, but because he had deteriorated so badly that he could no longer even participate in his own defense. By then, Slevin was a broken man, The difference between his booking photo in 2005 and his release photo in 2007 is one of the most haunting visual testaments to neglect ever captured. In his first photo, Slevin looks like an ordinary middle-aged man, neatly shaven, hair combed, skin tanned and healthy. In his second photo, he is almost unrecognizable, pale, gaunt, with hollow cheeks, wild hair, and a long, scraggly beard. His eyes look vacant, haunted, as if the man he once was had been erased. When the images were released, they stunned the public. How could a man simply disappear into solitary confinement for nearly 2 years without anyone noticing or intervening? After his release, Slevin spent months trying to piece his life back together. But the injustice of what had been done to him gnawed at him. He had been denied due process, denied medical care, denied basic human dignity. In 2008, he filed a lawsuit against Doña Ana County, accusing jail officials of neglect, abuse, and violating his civil rights. His attorneys presented overwhelming evidence: medical records of untreated conditions, testimony about the psychological toll of prolonged solitary confinement, and undeniable proof that the jail staff knew exactly what he was going through and did nothing. The case dragged on for years, but Slevin persisted. He wanted accountability, not just for himself, but to expose a system that could do this to anyone. In 2012, after a long and grueling legal battle, a jury awarded Slevin $22 million in damages, one of the largest settlements ever given to an individual in a case of wrongful imprisonment and neglect. The verdict sent a powerful message. What had been done to him was not just cruel, it was unconstitutional. It was a reminder of the dangers of unchecked power within the prison system, and of what can happen when a human being is treated as disposable. But for Slevin, the victory was bittersweet. The money could never undo the damage. He had lost nearly 2 years of his life. His mental health had been shattered. His body bore the scars of neglect. And during the trial, he was diagnosed with late-stage cancer. Slevin passed away not long after receiving justice, leaving behind a story that still serves as a grim warning of what can happen when systems of authority fail the people they are meant to serve. Sllevin's story is not just about one man's suffering. It's about the dangers of a broken system, one where oversight fails, where vulnerable people are left to rot, and where justice is forgotten. He entered jail as a troubled man with depression. He left as a broken shell of himself, destroyed not by his crime, but by the system meant to deliver justice. Slevin's ordeal forces us to ask, how many others have been lost in silence? How many more are suffering behind bars, invisible to the outside world? His case remains one of the clearest examples of why accountability and oversight are essential, and why the humanity of prisoners, convicted or not, must never be ignored. If you found Slevin's story as shocking as I did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more true crime and justice stories. And as always, stay curious and stay safe.